We returned to Canterbury in the county of Kent at the end of February 1455. Countless chapels and churches dot the cityscape, overshadowed by the great Canterbury Cathedral at the center, its Gothic spire high up in the cold night air. Robert de Vere and Elined Versinghen, you waited all night yesterday, and still the ranger Guillaume de Free guy never returned to the summons. And so on this new night, in the city of Canterbury, the two of you emerge from your rooms at the inn, which Gertrude established for you. Gertrude's still asleep in bed when you leave the room, Elined. She seems a little bit under the weather. And as you're leaving, you see Robert is also coming down the hall. And I leave this scene to you as you both find each other.
How long do you intend on waiting on them? I thought you said it wouldn't be long.
Unless something has happened to them, it shouldn't be long. Much longer. I suppose we'll wait a few hours.
We might need to wait longer than that.
That may be so.
No,
Well,
I was not referring to your contact.
no.
Gertrude seems to be a bit sick. I need to seek out some sort of medical help for.
But of course. Nothing the blood could cure, is it?
I am not trained in this realm of information. Whatever's going on is beyond my knowing. Though that isn't saying much considering I never truly looked into anything related to.
And I will add, Elined, given that you are an Ancilla and Gertrude has served you for many decades now, this is not the first time you've seen her fall ill to something, although in the past, it's rarely more than a couple nights of her being bedridden before she recovers. You've seen the strength of her vitae carry her through illness and even plague that has decimated other communities. So it is not entirely unusual for her to be bedridden right now. Perhaps if it persists.
It seems will remain longer still. But perhaps I'll wait a few hours, and if there is no sign of him, I'll have to start investigating myself.
Very well.
I'll take an intelligence politics standard from both of you. Alright, a botch from Robert. And Elined, you're gonna have to try and re-roll that. That was not a...
Oh, that wasn't, Oh, right, I tossed in an F1 when I didn't need to.
There we go. 3 successes from Elined. Robert, you don't see anything wrong with the current setup. Waiting seems fine. Elined, it occurs to you that neither of you have presented yourself to the prince, and that could certainly be forgiven on your first night arriving. The second night, if you continue to go about your business without any clear reason for not presenting yourself, even as Gauntlet Lords, it could be viewed as either disrespectful or at least out of etiquette.
Alright. Oh my, alright. So, more pressing matters. We need to make ourselves to court, and we need to present ourselves before we get in trouble.
Ah. Yes, I've completely forgotten. Well, Gertrude be fine here.
I intend to present myself, not to linger, to seek out someone to see to her, and after that I will see what their diagnosis is.
Well, let us hope it won't be the first time a ghoul has gone missing.
Oh, I can assure you, it would not end well for anyone who tried.
Then let us make haste.
And she's gonna leave for court.
Alright, so the two of you depart from the inn into the cold, snowy streets. You recall, as I mentioned last time, that Elysium is held in the east end of the city at St. Thomas's Hospital. And you approach this hospital, which is built like a monastery with stone walls, wooden roofs, the cross at the top, with an adjoined tower that you see. It seems more recently built. As you enter, the two of you, you enter in the hospital. Large wooden doors close behind you, and ahead of you is what appears to be a chapel. To your left and right are hallways that extend further into this hospital. These ceilings are quite high. You see what looks like a few travelers passing through, perhaps pilgrims. They seem to be speaking to one of the sisters, one of these nuns, in the chapel ahead. And off from your right, a fair young woman in a black habit and a wimple comes up to the two of you at a calm pace, stepping up. Ah, good evening. May I help the two of you? Are you pilgrims?
Not
Perhaps.
quite pilgrims, but we have been traveling for a while.
Well, please do, come out of the cold. I imagine it's quite dreadful out there. And she looks the both of you up and down with interest, and quite abruptly, she moves her hands to take your hands, Elined, kind of feeling at your hands, squeezing them gently, and then her hands go up to your neck and your face, clearly lacking any etiquette at all.
She will quickly back away.
Ah, I apologize. I suspected you might be of a different sort. I know just what to do with your kind. I expect you'll want to come with me. She smiles pleasantly enough, seemingly not at all.
I'm
concerned.
rolling empathy.
Sure. Perception, empathy, standard difficulty.
Would detail-oriented apply? I do not think it would.
I will say no. And as she's rolling, Robert, what's your reaction to this strange behavior from this nun?
Robert first raised an eyebrow. He planned on just presenting his ring and seeing if she made any recognition of it.
Alright, Elined, you look this nun over. She looks very enthused and confident and calm. There doesn't seem to be any malice or subterfuge in her intent, so far as you can tell. She does seem a little bit eccentric, obviously.
Alright. She'll simply nod and... Very well. Where might you be leading us?
Oh, further in. I don't imagine you'd want to share those kinds of words out here in the public. And she kind of looks around.
Of course.
Lead the way, sister.
And she begins leading you away, kind of speaks sidelong to you. I apologize. I'm Sister June. I do not know if I said that or not. Have you traveled far?
We have been actively traveling for a good while now.
I'm terribly sorry to hear it. It does seem like quite a brutal winter out there.
Yes, it is.
She escorts the two of you further down this right hall, and you are led through the hospital in a tortuous path, passing through some of the rooms where some of the sick lay, and the nuns tend to them, bringing washcloths and water basins. Everything seems to be what you'd expect out of a hospital run by nuns.
Did we come across any guards on the way in?
No, not that you saw.
Okay.
Finally, after this long, tortuous path, she brings you to a heavy iron wrought door. Looks very out of place for this whole hospital, or a hospital at all. And she takes out a large key ring and begins unlocking the door. It swings open very slowly and reluctantly. And as it opens, the scene cuts. And at this point, I'm going to take just people in this scene into a private channel.
Ruh-roh.
And at that, we will rejoin the rest.
Okay.
Alright. Thank you for bearing with me. The two of you slowly start to come out from the darkness of your senses, and your vision returns in a groggy state as you both rise up from the floor. You now realize you've been collapsed like a doll. Your head pounds. Your vision is unfocused. But as you look about and get your senses back, you see you are unharmed, physically unchanged. But you're not standing in a chapel as when you came in. You seem to be standing at the base floor of some great and tall building with rings of balconies looming over you. A spiral staircase begins to your right and winds up and up around this tower. Guardrails of each level circle up above you. 3 circle of balconies look down upon you, with a handful of faces peering down in interest. Some of these faces seem to have tics, moving unnaturally. Some of the faces look down with teeth gritted as though on the verge of hysteria. Ahead of you is a great stone statue of a winged angel, and in front of the statue stands Sister June, the nun you met before. And to her left stands Prince Octavia. No one else you saw seems to be present. Octavia and Sister June seem to wait for you to gather your senses. What do we see when we turn to Elined?
She gets up, she's grasping at... did the sword cut straight through her? She's trying to see if there's a hole in her clothing from that.
There's no hole. Your clothing seems fine. You actually don't feel any pain there at all.
Then... first is a look of more shock. Second, after looking up to her, she tries to gather herself and get to a more controlled state. How long?
Octavia and Sister June stand in silence. There may be 30 or 40 feet ahead of you. Robert at this time is starting to rise out of his state as well. What do we see with Robert?
Robert's eyes will flash open as he reaches to his back to examine if there was any mark left from the pain he felt earlier. After examining... Oh, go ahead.
No, you don't feel any mark or pain anymore.
After examining, he'll visibly relax and turn his attention towards Elined and then Octavia.
How long were we out for?
Length I do not know, but remain calm.
You remain calm. You do not have a ghoul that is sick currently.
Minutes only, I assure you. Prince Octavia speaks to you from further away. Welcome to my hospital.
Quite the welcome you give.
The duplicity is not out of malice. In this city, purity of heart is of the utmost importance. I shall not suffer one of the damned in my city, if they seek to deceive me, though those clear of their conscience shall find warm welcome in my halls.
Would that test have turned out differently, or is this the warm welcome?
To what end have you come to this city?
I came here to first find my ghoul, who was sent here to find a associate of the Merchant of Worshipful Company.
Her eyes slowly drift from you to Elined.
She is not happy, and that is very clear on her face.
Your anger is expected, Lady Versingen.
Yes, I do believe it is well founded.
Though you should know, I provided only a canvas. In your mind was provided the palette to paint a picture. And so your anger is of your own creation.
I feel like I need to make a self-control roll.
Absolutely. You make a self-control roll, give you difficulty 7.
Oh no.
Alright, 0 successes. I'm gonna let you decide what does that mean for Elined. She no longer has control over her emotion.
Oh. Well, that look of anger seems to contort, and she starts shaking, the fangs dropping down. This prince has wasted her time, her precious time. and disrespected her on top of that. And if someone doesn't stop her, she's probably gonna try to lunge for Octavia.
Robert's going to glance at Elined. Is it that obvious she's about to pounce?
It looks pretty obvious. Her fangs are extended, and you see the eyes of a beast, not a woman anymore. Sister June looks concerned. Her eyes are going wide, and she takes a step back. Octavia remains placid.
Robert frowns at this and whispers, "Are you in control?"
She doesn't even seem to notice you.
Okay, well, in this case, Robert will attempt to place a hand on Elined.
Is he doing anything to try to stop her? Because I'm gonna be rolling pretty soon.
I mean, he doesn't. Okay, Robert knows he doesn't have the strength to do anything, but yeah, he'll try to pull her aside.
Nope, pulling the shoulder away, and... Should I roll now? I get the feeling I should roll now.
Hang on, one other roll is going to happen before you roll that. How much willpower do you have?
Permanent or temporary?
Permanent.
5.
Okay. Alright, give me one moment. As you look at Octavia, you feel the anger within you bleeding away quickly. There's something unnatural in her eyes, cold and calming. The beast in you becomes barely a whisper. You feel your fangs withdraw. You don't know how. You were certain you were about to lunge as you regain your senses and realize who you're talking to and who you're looking at, and you feel something powerful subdue the beast within you as you look into her eyes. As I said, your anger is expected. This has been insightful, and your time has been appreciated.
And I trust we are free to continue our business, Prince Octavia.
She looks to you slowly. I will aid you in what manner I might, though you should be aware of a revealed danger. I have felt a presence pervade the city, a flux of auras like that of the cathedral. holy and righteous in purpose. Inquisitors have been detected, and I suspect of a more dangerous variety than ordinary clergy.
Robert can't help but frown at this, recalling that the man he seeks is, at least seems to be, of the clergy.
Sister June seems to have regained some composure since seeing Elined on the verge of frenzy and takes a couple steps forward again. Yes, there was a Norman man. He was seen beaten and dragged away from the Perot Tavern within the past weeks. My sources inform me he was secreted away and brought to the bowels of the cathedral, and among the accomplices a priest was identified.
Is this the description of Guy?
She only described a Norman man, and vaguely, a guy could be considered a Norman man. And he has been in here, presumably in the last few weeks.
At this moment, Robert's fangs will come out. Ah, and where is this cathedral?
Well, it is the Cathedral of Canterbury, the most dominant building in the city. Though I imagine it might be difficult for you to approach. I've not heard of any of your kind succeeding.
It just instantly seems like a wave of despair washes over Robert as he can't help but just facepalm at this.
If that is the case, is there anywhere safer I can bring my ghoul until she recovers?
You are free to bring your woman to the hospital. She shall receive care here. You may consider it my consolation for your experience tonight.
Thank you, and she bows and says, my apologies for how I acted earlier. It was out of line.
I anticipated a potential reaction as you displayed. Fear not, Lady Versinghen. You may go as you please in this city, though I caution you. The church is very powerful here. The presence of the Inquisitors, most dangerous.
Thank you, my prince.
She seems to wait there, almost like a statue.
I may just take my leave sooner than expected.
All right. What do the two of you do?
Elined, since it was offered, intends to go and fetch Gertrude to bring her back to the hospital for treatment. Though her senses are telling her to run since there are inquisitors in the city.
And Robert following after?
Yes.
All right. The two of you begin to depart, and Robert, you feel a tug at the side of your cloak. A hand. You see Octavia has actually closed the distance and is looking up to you. She's barely half your height.
Robert will turn slowly and regard Octavia. Yes.
She points up to you with a small finger. There is a darkness in the far corner of your mind. You think of it seldom, but it thinks of you often. I know not its nature. Mind that. And her hand falls to her side.
Robert gives a confused blink, but nods slowly at this.
And then you're allowed to leave. And Elined, you're close enough to have heard that exchange. So the two of you make your way out. As you depart, you exit through here and see that the heavy iron wrought door is actually what led to this room. At that, the scene fades on the two of you departing from this tower. Meanwhile, we return to Ireland, to the Pale. Cormac and Thomas still in Dublin. The two of you have met with Robert Dufour. You have some idea about a plan to intercept or steal a shipment of valuable goods from Ireland bound for Chester by way of Liverpool. You've been told that in some time within the next month, you'll be contacted again with more details. What do the two of you intend to get up to in the next, we'll say, fortnight? We'll start with Cormac. It is late February 1455. What will you do?
Well, he's not going to make any decision without Tom's input anyway, so the question is this: are we going back to England for the month, or are we staying here?
Tom would be okay staying in Dublin for the time being. Doesn't make sense to make it harder to get in touch with them.
Then Cormac, at the very least, would urge that they send a message to the other members of the Gauntlet.
Agreed. Though, how soon? The longer it sits in Valanis's haven, the more likely it is to be read.
Cormac looks vexed by that.
Of course, we could simply be properly vague. Held up in Dublin. We'll be late.
Yeah, Cormac will agree to something like that. And with a message sent, and since they're staying in Dublin, I guess he'll show him around his old haunt.
Happen to know anyone who might make a sound ally?
The question is, do I, or have things changed so much?
In the next fortnight, when you begin going through Dublin, you find that enough has changed that the contacts you might have known here have either deceased or been replaced, except, of course, the Prince, Edward de Warenne. He seems to be your only remaining contact in Dublin.
Well, once the last option has dried up, that is exactly what Cormac will tell Thomas. They're in it on their own.
Fresh faces, then. I assume the Connacht is out of the questions. He's obviously jesting.
Cormac doesn't look so amused. He just shakes his head feebly.
Lighten up, man. You're home. Where was the energetic spirit that greeted us when we stepped off the...
I'm a bit concerned by this turn of events.
Aye, there are things we'll need to set in motion. I'd very much like to replace whatever banner happens to be flying on the ship.
Question that still haunts my mind. Do we kill everyone aboard that ship, and replace them with our own crew, or find another way.
There are other ways. I happen to be quite good at influencing people.
We have to know more that there's no way to know.
Then we'll just have to wait for future contact.
And once we have the ship, if we have it, what's to prevent it being taken by pirates?
So long as we don't bother trying to cross the channel or go into the open ocean, we should be fine. If the plan still is to deliver the goods to the island, we shouldn't run across very much resistance at all.
There are just too many uncertainties. We should come up with some kind of plan.
For which part?
You have a cunning mind. Are there ways we can waylay the ship without violence?
Of course. We approach the captain, who will almost certainly be in the employ of Barbaros. Impress him with our rings. If that doesn't work immediately, I can simply influence his mind.
That's the whole thing. We can't let news get back to the mainland that the fucking gauntlet was involved at all.
I can erase that as well.
Isn't there some way we can get them locked up in legalities?
I suppose it's plausible, but it depends on who's doing the questioning after the fact.
Blast it all, they've really put us in a hard place. Which I think is very much what they were attempting to do.
It's not worth calling it a test if it's not a challenge. On the other hand, I understand it's rather profitable finding the proper route down around the Horn of Africa.
What are you on about now?
We wouldn't have to kill them, so long as it was unlikely they'd be heard from again for some years. Long enough for memories to be muddied and Perhaps even a ship lost.
The whole point is to confiscate the goods.
Yes, but after.
And how would you pull off something like that?
So, to prove a point, Tom is going to use dominate in a very gentle way.
Okay.
And he's going to look Cormac in the eye and say, touch the tip of your finger to the tip of your nose and hold it there.
Manipulation leadership, difficulty 6. Four successes. Cormac, you're very inclined to do exactly as he says right now.
And so he does.
It's inelegant, but effective.
Cormac doesn't even look angry. It would have been unreasonable to think that Thomas had that kind of power over him. But he doesn't look impressed either. I've seen those tricks before, even experienced them on occasion. How are you going to do that to a whole bloody ship?
One at a time.
Oh, and by the way, never do that again.
Fair enough. You can put your hand down now.
He looks at his finger, not even realizing that it was still touching his nose.
Besides which, it's really only the captain who needs the orders. The crew tends to follow the captain as long as he's not a piece of shit.
Would the crew be local, I wonder? Those who are not in Barbossa's direct employ. Could they be gotten to?
An option. Buy him a few too many drinks at the bar the night before.
We could manufacture a mutiny.
We could at that.
And it wouldn't look like they were being influenced at all, if the reason was right.
But a captain would have to be a right rotten sack for a crew to mutiny on a one-day voyage.
I didn't even think about that. Damn it.
It's not unheard of. Proper taskmasters tend to lose loyalty fairly quickly, especially if they have a habit of it. The simple solution is simply taking on a new crew at each.
Our first step should be to find out as much as we can about that ship and her crew.
That will have to wait until our contacts.
Weren't you a bloody seaman? Don't they keep records of this kind of thing?
Captain, but yes. But we don't know under which banner it flies, whether it's owned by a particular merchant company or guild, or if it's managed by a private merchant house. So where would we look for these records?
Wouldn't they have to be filed with the local harbor master?
True enough.
Don't forget, I know quite a bit about the law.
We could also ask De Warren, but I don't think we want that. Too many questions I don't care to answer just...
No. As much as I respect Prince De Warren, he must know nothing of this.
We can certainly make our way down to the harbor and see what ships are scheduled to dock at about that. Of course, it will depend on whether or not it's actually scheduled or if it's simply showing up.
Wouldn't that cause difficulties of its own?
Yes, but with enough money in the right hands, such a problem can be ignored.
Is every bloody person corruptible in this world?
I find that everyone has a price.
Well, I don't.
Maybe not in coin.
Cormac's nose wrinkles a bit. It is possible if he were to continue down that line of thought, he might start to get angry, so he changes the subject. We should make haste down to the docks then. We've wasted enough time.
Indeed. But I wouldn't call it a waste. Tom will collect himself and make for the door.
I do love the city. I love being able to show you around it. But if we die doing what we're going to do, it won't matter much.
At least we'll have died doing something that matters, even if, in the end, it comes to nothing.
Aha! That's the spirit. And he'll give you one of his hearty slaps on the shoulder.
Tom grins. There's some idealism left in you. Maybe even in me.
It's just been tempered by a century of caution. I'm trying to shed that.
And they'll make their way down to the harbor.
Okay. Two of you make your way through the streets of Dublin back to the harbor. And your intent is to what exactly?
see if we can look at the records of incoming and outgoing ship at the harbor master's office.
Maybe even see if they've got anything scheduled for a month out or so.
All right. So obviously at this hour, the harbor master's office is not going to be open, so it's going to be a matter of getting in. That's going to be your biggest challenge, is getting into the office to get to the records. So let's see here.
Ooh, how late is it?
You think maybe 10 at night, 11 at night, something around there.
No. Should have come earlier.
Even in winter, you think it's a bit late for this to be accessible to the public? But I will have you both make a we'll say wits investigation roll, difficulty 7. You can pool your successes.
You can't pool.
Alright. 4 successes in total. Do you have any specialties there, Tom?
Negative.
Okay. Still, 4 successes is plenty enough. The security here is not what you would call top shelf. And so you're able to find a loose window that is easy enough to get open, and with one person getting a look out, the other person is able to kind of get boosted in, and through teamwork you're both able to get into the harbor master's office, and in a short amount of time you find the ledger that keeps track of incoming and outgoing ships, tracks of imports and exports. Mostly it's exports from this port. Documents of ship manifests, the captain's assigned. And you do see that there is kind of an area for scheduled, anticipated ships arriving. And your goal here was to see if you could detect the ship coming in that might be the target.
Yep. Or at the very least, identify what colors it would be flying under.
The vast majority of ships arriving within the next month are going to be under the auspice of House Lancaster. There are a few independent ships, merchant guilds, of course the Company of Mercers comes up several times, but mostly it seems to be traffic between here and Liverpool.
Are there any manifests that match what we know will be on the upment?
Will be on the what? What was that last part?
The upcoming ship. Oil, wax, iron, and I think...
Yeah, so it's only a couple weeks away.
Yeah, I'll say that you do find on there what looks like the appropriate description. Of course, there's many descriptions of what is supposed to be imported or exported, and you do find one that's anticipating the export of iron, wax, and oil, and it is going to be coming in, or rather a ship is coming in to take it, and the ship's name is the Peter von Danzig, captained by Joseph Lacan.
Joseph Lacan. Sounds like a right Irish name. Maybe we can meet him.
Very probably, but at least now we have a date.
It wouldn't even look suspicious. We are members of the Gauntlet, merely investigating trade routes heading toward Covenant cities.
Perhaps asking after a certain errant child of a former Gauntlet lord.
We'd have to play it right, though. So when it does happen, suspicion doesn't fall on us. It's a risk.
The whole thing is a risk. Out of curiosity, can I tell what kind of a ship it is? And then from that, kind of estimate how many crew it would.
Unfortunately, it does not detail anything about like the ship or the crew. It just says the captain and the anticipated trade, and the ship name, of course.
Does it give a volume?
Actually, it does. It does give you a volume, and I won't make you roll for this because you're an experienced trader. It looks like there's going to be several hundred tons of total cargo, and you don't know of any cogs which can carry that. But I will have you make an intelligence commerce to perhaps think of what might be able to. Standard difficulty. Two successes. Alright. You are an experienced enough trader to recognize volumes of trade like this are only held by ships that the Portuguese have made, such as the carracks and the caravels, compared to the traditional single-masted cogs of the last several hundred years, which have only had room for maybe 30 people. Carracks are multi-masted ships capable of holding many hundreds of tons of cargo, withstanding deep-sea voyages, and their crews can be well over 100 men. And they're considered the cutting edge of naval technology right now.
God's balls.
Watch your blasphemy mouth.
The man's come across a Portuguese carrack.
What the bloody hell is that?
It's not important. It's crewed by upwards of 100 individuals, possibly.
100? And then realizing how loud he's speaking, 100!
Indeed.
Well, a straight-on assault is out.
It will have to be the captain alone.
And let's hope he's not a bloody Canite.
Oh, let's hope that he is.
What's your reasoning there?
It's far easier to work a boon out of an individual Canite than it is kill 100 men.
But if he is a Canite, Barbaros will come looking for him. He wouldn't do so for mortal men. Especially the Irish.
A ship that size is expensive, regardless of the crew. If it belongs to Barbaros, the ship, no matter what. Might as well be playing with a paper boat in a lock compared to a cog with this.
Well, this changes everything.
It does indeed. I'd actually been of the mind at one point in my youth to acquire one.
What changed your mind? The price?
The manpower. Would have cost me quite a lot in men and possibly even ships to acquire one. I mean steel.
A ship that big couldn't belong to any trading company. Do you think de Martinique might have been involved in this little agreement with his company at the stable?
The records go back too long. Matter of fact, do previous shipments look to be about the same size or small?
If you look back in past years, it looks like trades of this size only happen maybe once or twice every couple years. But they have occurred in the past. You actually recognize the same name. The ship has been here before. Not many years past, but as early as a couple years ago.
And Tom will point this out. No. This is Barbarossa's ship.
He'd certainly have the resources to maintain such a thing.
But why so far apart? Why so regular?
What's he doing with the goods once he gets them?
Iron for swords, tools, armor.
Does he have an army sizable enough to need that much iron?
House Lancaster is not small.
You think he's supplying the house directly?
I'd bet on it.
That would be a lucrative agreement.
Tom will stand from the ledger. There's something else that's occurred to me. Perhaps it's occurred to you. Once we do this, with Barbaros in his state, he'll certainly blame Ragnar.
And that's a problem. Why?
It's not. It's precisely what we want.
It hadn't occurred to me, but now that you've told me, I'm actually quite pleased.
Do we want to push that assumption? Or simply leave it up to his imagination?
I'm all for giving the situation a little push. If he's busy worrying about Ragnar and what she's doing, he won't see us coming from the backside.
Hold on, I need to help my wife. She's stuck.
I shouldn't laugh, but I mean, that was random.
The question of how comes to mind.
Pickle jar on her head. I don't know. Hope it's not bad enough they have to drag out the Crisco.
And I'm back.
Crisco required?
Now we're good.
Alright.
I totally didn't hear what you said last instant.
All he said was that if Barbaros is busy with Ragnar, he won't see them coming from the backside.
And perhaps forces will be devoted to quieting those conflicts, which would open up other areas of England for certain industrious individuals.
I like the way you think.
Though, it does make me wonder if they have use for this particular ship afterward.
Too many unknowns. And I'm hoping our new friends can answer some of them.
Aye. For now, though, I think we have what we need, in as much as we can. Perhaps we go rile up the locals a bit.
Which locals are you talking about?
Well, ideally the kind, but local Canaanites could be of use as well. We might need a smoke screen.
Any particular smokescreen in mind?
Ideally an unruly mob, upset about English rule, storming the harbor.
That's a little bit more of a distraction than I was hoping for. And it would require quite a bit more work.
We have a month.
No, we have 2 weeks.
With which we can identify particularly sore spots and individuals prone to violent fits of rage.
Do you think it's that bloody easy to start a riot? The peasant rebellion was years in the brewing.
And how long has Ireland been getting fucked by Barbara?
It's more than just Barbaros. But for quite a long while, it's true.
The peasant rebellion was dry kindling that needed a good match. Ireland's a powder keg. Surrounded by a vat of spilled oil. The smallest spark, all that's necessary.
Have you ever heard the story of Pandora's box, Thomas?
I was a terrible student.
It's an old Greek tale about a girl who decided to open a box that contained all the evil in the world. But her curiosity was just too much. So open it she did. And once she did, she couldn't put it back again. What you're suggesting would be something much like that.
Except that I'm no young Greek waif, and Ireland isn't all of the evil in the world. And I have no desire to put it back once it's loose.
We're not trying to tear the city apart. We're trying to waylay one ship. All I'm asking is you have a little perspective.
We'll call that Plan B. Perhaps just a drunken brawl in the harbor.
The two of you are talking when you both feel a pull, an unnatural inclination to leave towards the outside, maybe towards the dock somewhere.
Do you feel that?
I do.
Someone is bloody summoning us.
It's not Devere. He couldn't have made it here that fast.
Let's go and see who it is then.
I suppose we shall.
I don't think we have a choice.
The pull's not that strong. Even so, he'll lead the way towards the window they jimmied to get in.
Let's put it back the way we found it.
Taking care, the two of you make your way out of the window, hopping down a short drop, and with some attention you manage to make it pretty convincing that no one was in there. And you make your way down towards the dock. And indeed, it is not an urgent summons, but it is a pull that you seem to satisfy by going towards. And once you make it down towards one of the darker of these wooden planks, these pathways out, you end up behind a large collection of crates, apparently intent for some ship, and see a cloaked figure who turns, and you recognize that it is, in fact, Robert Dufour.
A damned Caravella.
He turns his head to you, a bit curious. Carrick, actually. I see that you've found out a bit about the Peter von Danzig.
You didn't just expect us to sit in the dark and wait, did you?
The details are difficult to acquire. Beyond the name and basic information, I've only recently come into valuable knowledge for your task.
Make it good news. Hopefully she's a skeleton.
Not quite. The Peter von Danzig is a three-masted carrack previously owned by the Hanseatic League, now in possession by Barbaros. By the most recent information I have, it is manned by no less than 40 sailors and 60 marines. At least one Cainite is going to be on board, helmed by a Captain Joseph Lecan. The carrack by itself is quite a prize, but its contents would make a fortune. Are you intimidated by the prospects of this mission?
Troubled by the timeline.
I would be alarmed if you were not concerned. If you are committed to overthrowing the Covenant princes, you should have some concern for this. The forces they may muster will always be titanic compared to our own. We will always fight undermanned, under-resourced. You must be adaptable, agile, creative. While the Covenant will lean on the girth of their men and coin their castles and ships, you will have only your wits and your sword arm. And yet you must prevail, or England will not be saved from their tyranny. This is as much a test as a lesson.
Do we have any information on the Cainite in question?
Yes. I believe it is a toreador by the name of Charles Wright, an ancestor slightly older than yourself. As I said before, your status should carry if intend you to use your status, though I leave the specifics of this to you. He will identify the Son of the Gauntlet and the Covenant. But of course, as I said, no Cainite may survive this. Should they see you on board, your identity will be reported back.
It's damned unfortunate, but it works in our favor.
Taking this ship will be a serious blow to Barbarossa's finances for the next year, perhaps two. We are aware of the escalating feud between him and the York Prince. Should that unfold, this will not have a trivial impact on the scale.
This may give Barbarossa the motivation he needs.
And it may tip that scale in favor of Ragnar. Mind you, we have no concern whom would best benefit from the outcome of that feud. Barbaros has plagued Ireland for far too long.
How long until Ragnar's day comes?
We have assets in and near her fief to identify targets of opportunity.
Rothschild.
Cormac is a bit surprised by Thomas's boldness. He'll give him a sharp look.
For the protection of our assets, you must understand at this point in time, I can disclose only so much to you.
By choosing not to answer, you disclose far more than you think. But take heart, you merely confirm a suspicion.
We are not ignorant of the fact that should one or both of you be detained and questioned by the appropriate prince, answers shall be forthcoming of your knowledge of our resources. Even I am not privy to everything which we possess.
After we've taken... Go ahead.
You're good.
You were first.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Presuming we are successful, and the ship arrives at the Isle of Man, have you a crew to replace it?
Should needs be, yes. If you succeed and bring the ship to the Isle, you will meet another of our contacts there. Have you any questions for your task? This is the last time I shall speak to you until after.
What will become of the vessel afterwards?
The Carrack may be refitted to war purposes, piracy. It would be well suited to that task. There are few cogs in the waters around the British Isles which can match it.
Have you a captain in mind?
We have men in mind that may fulfill this position, though we do not determine these things until after we are successful in such ventures. Perhaps you may captain it after you are successful. And he smirks ever so slightly.
The thought had occurred to me. But as you say, that's a discussion for after.
Yes, a question more relevant to the now. How well does he defend these ships of his? Shall we expect many Canaanites?
The trip is short. They are not expected to be at sea for more than a full day, 2 at the most. That said, Barbaros is very concerned about these trades. They are large and few in frequency. As I said, you may expect 60 Marines. We believe Charles Wright, the Canaanite, is on board. Perhaps others, but it is unlikely that he would send many Canaanites aboard the ship.
Then that would be to our advantage. And what do you know of the captain?
He is of no great fame or status. Believed he may have served as a captain of ship at some time in the very end of the 100 Years' War.
Do you know if he's paid well?
Highly unlikely.
Also to our advantage. That's all I have, Thomas.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Everyone has their price.
It was exactly your words I was thinking about.
Any other questions, my lords?
You said after the deed is done, the rest will be revealed. I presume you mean on delivery.
Yes.
I look forward to speaking to her again then.
If that is all, I wish the two of you bonne chance and a good evening.
As they say, merry we meet, and merry we part, and merry we meet again.
He lowers the edge of his hood as he begins pacing past you through the dock and heading further into the boardwalk. And as he departs, the scene fades. It comes to a close, and we will take our break here since we're right at 7, and we'll come back in around 15. Meanwhile, in Canterbury, we catch up with Elined and Robert. Elined, you were able to get Elined brought over to the hospital.
Elined can bring Elined?
Oh, what did I say? Elined brought Elined?
Yes.
You were able to get Gertrude over to the hospital. And she seemed to be okay. She was walking independently, although she definitely seemed a bit warm to the touch. She mentioned something about having concerns for the 5 men that were brought with you. She thinks that they have something similar. And so she's tended to soon enough by Sister June and some of the several attending nuns there. And so you leave her in their care, and you're stepping back into the main entrance to the hospital.
She would like to have another word with Octavia, if possible.
Absolutely. Do you invite Robert with you, or do you do this on your own?
If he would like to come along.
Alright, Robert is with you, so Robert, you are invited to return to Octavia.
I'll come along.
Okay. It takes you some time to find your way back through the halls of St. Thomas, but eventually you arrive back at the heavy iron door, and moving in, you do not experience the same setting you did before. This time you immediately see the actual tower you step into with many balconies above you. Of course, there are not any faces looking down at you this time. You do see off to the side, near the end of the spiral staircase, Octavia is turned away from you, and she seems to be holding something in her hands, in both of her hands, kind of bobbing it up and down. She either hasn't noticed you or hasn't reacted to your entrance.
She will approach. My apologies, my prince.
She turns to you slowly, and you can see that it looks like she has an infant in her hands that she's kind of bobbing up and down gently. And she looks up to you with wide, childlike eyes. How fares Gertrude?
She is being tended to.
I shall see that Sister June makes frequent checks upon your woman.
Again, my apologies for the intrusion again, but I had a thought that I couldn't think of before due to how clouded my mind was at the
Please speak your mind, she says as she raises the infant up and hefts it over her shoulders.
How much of those visions could you yourself witness?
We shared what you experienced. Your mind projected the thoughts which you thought you would hear, and I guided the paintbrush upon the canvas as you provided the palette. Both of you. And her eyes go from you towards Robert.
Very well. My meaning of returning was to see if I needed to repeat that information or not.
No. Your words were sincere and appreciated.
And connected to that, would you like us to send word back?
To what end, Lady Versinghen?
It has already been stated that there is a potential corruption. I offered to go out and deliver the message to the other princes, so you would not have to waste one of your own doing so.
It is within my power to deliver such messages without expending any men.
Very well. With that, she will curtsy, and if nothing else, she will go to leave.
As you're walking away, you hear her voice call out, still kind of cradling this child and patting its back gently. What now is your intent, I wonder?
To check on the men that were in our retinue.
I speak not of the kind.
I do want to save my ghoul in some way. Guy didn't deserve this.
Indeed. I am regretful that your man may be lost to the clergy.
You think he still yet lives?
I suspect highly he still lives. But what fracture of his mind still exists now, I cannot predict.
And then you believe he has already gone through tortures in a week.
The Inquisitors I have known over the centuries are not known for their mercy.
I see. Well, failing a way to get him at least some mercy. Perhaps there's not much left here for me.
She continues to stare at you, her wide, childlike eyes. I do not command many legions, I'm afraid, nor do I permit manipulation of the church in my land. If there is a way for this kind to be saved, I shall aid how I may. But it shall be limited.
I see. Well, I shall have to think of a way to do something, anything. And I'll avoid going against the rules you've set.
I grant you leave to do as you would see just, so long as you do not attempt control over the church here. I will not have the faith defiled. There are few and precious, pure things in this world.
So be it.
I suspect these Inquisitors are not pure, however.
Robert, having little more to say, just bows at that.
She does not seem to acknowledge you, but she does start to walk up the spiral staircase with this infant over her shoulder. And as she turns, you can see the face of this infant, and it doesn't look quite right. There's something strange about it, but you're not immediately sure of what. And the two of you depart after that?
Robert's planning on that.
Yep.
Alright. So as you make your way back into the streets of Canterbury, the cold wind returns. And what do the two of you mean to do now? Ellen, you said you're checking on the men that came with you?
Yes.
And Robert.
For the time being, he'll come with Elined to make sure everything is in tip-top shape.
All right. And neither of you have medicine, as I recall.
Nope.
No.
Okay. You find the kind of barracks-like room that you find the 5 men in. It's one of the cheaper rooms. And they're all bedridden. Of course, without any real knowledge of medicine, you don't really know what's wrong. They seem to be warm to the touch like Gertrude was, but warmer and less responsive, less lucid. They kind of moan quietly. There's a lot of coughing up. You see some bloody rags some of these men have been coughing into. None of them look fit to even walk right now.
Elined looks over at Robert.
It doesn't seem good.
No, it does not. We could lessen things. Though the matter would then be trying to explain it to Thomas.
Yes. Perhaps we should just find replacements. I do not think they'll have long as they are.
She will pull him aside and whisper to him, "You understand that I mean that if we do not go them, they will die, correct? Both cases we will have to explain ourselves. You're the more humane one here. Would you like to attempt to save them?"
By going all these men?
Not purely you. I can pitch in as well, but if we want them alive, that is the way to go about it.
Well, It's worth a try. Though I did not know about keeping them bound to the blood after they make recovery.
We will see.
Alright, so what do you do?
Robert will take aside the guards that seem sick privately and give them...
They're bedridden, dude.
Yeah, they're not getting up. They're barely conscious.
I'll have to escort him. I don't know, maybe make an excuse he's taking them to use the toilet so they're not pissing and shitting over themselves.
By the smell of things in here, you think you're kind of late for that, actually. These men are too weak to even get up.
Are any of their fellows watching over them, or no?
All 5 of the men are laying in bed, kind of writhing.
Okay, well, if they're not paying attention, then yeah, I'll just start feeding them vitae.
How many is he feeding? Because Elined offered to ghoul a few.
I'll feed 3.
Okay, Elined will get the other 2 then.
Okay. It's easy enough. They're just conscious enough that when you put a cup to their mouth, they assume someone's trying to bring them water or something, and they drink readily. And before long, you have given all of them a point of vitae. So Robert, you can take off 3 points, Elined 2 points. And you don't notice an obvious immediate improvement. They don't spring out of bed or anything, but they at least seem to quiet down and fall asleep after slurping the last drop of each goblet you bring.
We've done what we can. Though I am curious, what did she make you see?
She just wanted to learn the intentions of the gauntlet, like every other prince, but through more invasive means.
That entirely aligns what I myself saw.
No surprise there, but her words did bring up concern. I do not know what shadow she is speaking of, but what was there was there.
I am uncertain to what he's referring to as well.
And Robert, you do think you know what she is referring to, unless you want to try and pass off that you don't.
Well, two things can come to mind for Robert, but he's not certain of which one. Unless you think it's more concrete, like the shape of the shadow or something.
No, only that you did see something in that room. And that's probably what she was referring to. What that was, I'll let you reinterpret, but...
Alright, we'll just pass it off as he doesn't know then. Shall we stay here, or at least attempt to get something done?
What did you have in mind?
Someone must know something at the tavern. Guy was abducted.
Very well, I will accompany you.
If we do get into trouble, don't worry about sticking around.
You are quick enough to escape yourself, and I have my own methods.
Quite so. I didn't come here to spill blood needlessly.
Nor did I come here to be ended at the hands of an inquisitor.
With that, how well known is the tavern that was mentioned? Does Robert know where it is offhand, or?
Just walking through the streets from when you came in to the inn to the hospital, you think you do recall seeing the Pero Tavern. Fortunately, you can read.
And Robert will head over there.
Right. The two of you make your way back through town, and retracing your steps, you find your way to the Pero Tavern. At this hour of night, it's getting quite late, although this tavern is still quite busy. It seems even in a city as holy as this, taverns and inns still do quite well. There's maybe a dozen people sitting around. Everyone seems to be in fairly subdued, but decent enough cheer. No one's extremely morbid. You don't get any sense of unnatural moods here. The barkeep seems a bit tired. It seems to take notice of you as you enter.
will scan the crowd as he first enters. Any that look like a group, gang sort, people that have a hierarchy in their group set up.
A perception investigation, standard difficulty. Alright, one success. You see one group of what looks like kind of thuggish men huddled around a corner. They seem to be gambling. They're pretty quiet. Most of them look either a little bit obese, pretty muscular, definitely more of the brigand type, just based on the rugged appearances.
Any religious icons or
Not that you can see.
emblems?
You do see a couple daggers strapped to belts and such.
Okay. Everyone else just seems to be enjoying the place.
Yeah, more or less. A lot of people drinking alone. As I said, it's somewhat subdued in here. A lot of these men are probably just trying to get out of the cold.
Okay. Robert will head up to the barkeep. Give him a greeting and ask him if he's seen a guy fitting the description of Guy in his tavern.
He tells you he might be able to remember a little bit better if he had some silver to jog his memory. A lot of people come through here.
Of course. Robert will order a drink.
He kind of frowns at that as he goes to get you a drink. What's Ellen to do?
Elined is keeping an eye out for any suspicious behavior. More trying to make sure they aren't ambushed.
I'll take a perception alertness from you, Elined. Standard difficulty. Four successes. Alright, nobody's gonna jump you by the appearance of things. Although this motley group of ne'er-do-wells in the corner that seems to be gambling, a few of them have taken interest in the two of you, particularly Robert. They seem to be looking at him, and with four successes, you catch some subtle gestures, kind of some of them pointing others to notice him. It's very subtle, but you catch it. And meanwhile, Robert, you're handed very cheap looking mug full of something that smells kind of like stale piss.
And with that, I'm officially a patron. And tell me, good sir, have you seen my friend?
Well, mate, wasn't exactly what I had in mind. It's not profitable for me to be pointing out patrons that may or may not have been involved in some roughhouse. If I am going to be putting myself on the line here, perhaps a few extra silver.
Oh no, I hope you didn't get into a fight.
As I say, sir, I can't quite recall all the details. You look like you're doing quite fine. You could pop with a few more coins than that.
What you say is true, but you make it sound like he's in trouble of some sort.
Well, maybe he is, sir. If only I could remember more details.
And how do I know you're not just trying to fleece me of my coin?
Sir, I am a proprietor of a very well-established tavern, the oldest one in Canterbury. I take offense to that accusation.
Quite right. It was not a just accusation. Though I should be skeptical. I was supposed to meet him here, but... a fight. Well, I suppose if I give you some extra coins, you'll tell me who and how much of a good fight he gave him, eh?
Aye, just a few more silver to appropriate the cost and whatnot of the risk I'm taking. Can't be selling out on my customers, can I?
Robert will scan the bar around and look over in that group of ne'er-do-wells. I hope it wasn't with that lot, was it?
He kind of shrugs and leans back against the wall.
He'll fetch out a couple of silver coins discreetly and place them in the barkeep's hand.
Roll your resources, difficulty 5. One success. You withdraw just enough coins. You realize you have to draw out really what remains in your pockets. There's not much. You must have left more in the carriage or perhaps at your manor. But you withdraw enough that you put a good handful of small silver coins in his hand. And he pockets them discreetly. Well, matter of fact, was a bloke a few weeks ago came in here, was asking a few questions about a McNally. Some McNally, as I recall. Only reason I recall that night is because there were a few of those less than gentlemen over there who were involved in following him out, giving him a good beating on the side of this here tavern. course, not all of them were involved, and was another man I saw leave with them. He didn't look the thug type. Looked maybe real well respected, clean shaven and such. Maybe a noble or a priest of some kind. Can't say. Saw them drag that poor bastard out, headed toward the cathedral.
That happen often in this town.
I see things happen here and there, but never seen a group like that ever associate with somebody of high standing as that man seemed to be. He must have been a noble, or somebody of some high esteem. Was trying not to be seen and such, but you could tell he didn't have the guile to pull it off. He didn't belong in a place like this.
So you say. So I best be careful around that lot then.
Aye. I think they've been eyeing you for a bit.
Quite right. And thank you for the warning.
He nods with a
Yes.
smile, kind of leaning across the counter.
How close is Elined?
She's maybe 30 feet behind you, close to the entrance, scanning the crowd.
Does anyone have their attention on her?
Not particularly. The group of thugs, once in a while you'll see one look over in her direction, and then kind of look down at the table.
Well then, Robert will promptly begin leaving the inn.
Alright.
Elined will as well. And whispers to them as they're leaving, "We should watch behind us. Those men were eyeing you when they were making gestures for others."
So I hear. Let's quickly find a alley to watch the entrance from.
Of course.
That'll be the goal. Robert will rush out in a quick fashion and look for a place to watch the entrance from, see if those guys follow them out.
Sure. With stealth, standard difficulty.
This is a dark alley he is going to, yes?
Yes.
Should be.
Well, after getting to the alley, she will use her own little control over shadows to try to mask that they themselves are in said alley.
Okay. Let's wait
Mechanics
until-
of that was an extra die, yeah?
Yeah. What I'll have you do is roll your wit stealth, and then I'm going to have Elined roll her... Oh, let's see, what is it? Celebration. Actually, you don't have to roll anything, Elined. I'll just have you spend a blood point, and you can add 5 dice to this.
Okay, you want me to roll those 5 dice?
Yeah.
Since he already rolled?
Yeah. Robert's not doing so well, but maybe Elined will.
Standard difficulty?
Yes. Alright. Robert, you pick a spot in the alley that you think is actually going to work out pretty well. But Elined, you see that coming in, Robert's very visible. This isn't going to work. But moving quickly, you bend the shadows unnaturally so that they kind of do this mirror, and instead of going the opposite wall, the shadows coalesce over Robert, leaving the other wall more lit. And it doesn't really look out of place. And because of your actions, you hide the two of you in the shadows here quite well. You wait there for maybe 10 minutes before you hear the door open and the sound of the tavern becomes audible again. And it stays open for some time as this collective of 6 burly men come walking out, and they start stalking off into the dark and cold night. They don't pass directly in front of the alleyway, but they pass where you can see them going off, and their eyes kind of go this way and that, their heads turning as though looking for something or someone. And they pass across this kind of large open city square, going off into the city. It does appear they are going in the direction of the cathedral, you notice.
Those are the thugs that did Guy in.
Yes, and they might be giving information forth on you.
It's possible. Should I see if the innkeeper told him anything?
If you would like.
Robert will shrug and begin heading back in.
Alright. You go in, and you start talking to the innkeeper, the tavern keeper.
Mm-hmm.
He explains to you he did not say anything and is appalled at such accusation that you would think that he would give up your information for money.
Checking to see if he's telling the truth.
Sure, perception, empathy. Ah, 4 successes. You believe him when he tells you that he didn't give him any information. You don't believe him at all when he tells you that he wouldn't just give you information for money. You put together, they probably didn't give him any money.
I would just smile and laugh along as this guy is explaining this. And with that, he'll bid him a good night.
He bids you a good night as you re-enter the streets, and Ellen, that you see Robert is back a few minutes later.
Alright, she'll drop her shadows and go to Joy.
At least they
We
don't
can
know.
either intercept or simply hope that we are not found.
They don't have reason to be searching for me beyond perhaps material gain. We could.
She will look at him. Does he have the blush of health thing act? Or rather, does he have that merit?
He does.
Oh, never mind. So they can't make judgments based on how he looks. Good to know.
I'll have you both make an intelligence investigation difficulty 8, since that thought did occur to you. At least Ellen did. But you're both speaking, so you can both make the roll. Alright, 2 successes from Robert. And 2 from Elined. So, it occurs to both of you, just putting the pieces together about what these men might do or say or know. If they were involved in Guy's detainment and somehow related to this supposed or alleged Inquisitor, and Guy did give up any information, then they might know to look for Robert, based on those details. Even if he does look alive.
Guy may have given them something, description.
Then it might be better for you to quit the city. I intend to do the same after Gertrude is better.
That would be the safe option, yes.
Otherwise, you need to find a very good location to hide.
I suppose nothing can be done at this time. I'll hide for now.
If push comes to shove, there is a port in this town. Or near us, at least. Near us. The port was in a neighboring place.
Dover, yes. So what do you do?
Robert will be content to head back to the hospital. At least for the rest of this night.
Okay. Robert heading back to the hospital and looking for Haven for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Elined.
She will check on the men once more.
All right. When you come in and it's been maybe an hour or so, maybe a couple hours since you last checked, you don't hear nearly as much coughing or moaning. They seem to be sleeping more peacefully now. Maybe what you did is having an impact. Maybe they need more time. Unfortunately, you don't know anything about medicine, so you're not sure. What will Elined do for the remainder of the evening?
She will go up and make sure her things and Gertrude's things are packed, so they can leave in a very quick fashion once everything is back to normal.
Alright. So you secure your belongings and Gertrude's belongings and staying in that room for the coming day?
That is her intention.
Okay. And with you there, Robert, you're able to find Haven at the hospital easily enough. And with that, we will fade the scene. And transition. It is now early to mid-March 1455 in Ireland as we catch up with Cormac and Thomas. You had your meeting with the outlaw Robert Dufour. Your information about the ship that is supposed to be incoming. Peter von Donzig, Carrick. You had a couple more weeks, perhaps, to prepare before the night. Cormac, how would you spend those 2 weeks?
He definitely wants to see if he can find the captain of the ship. What was it, Joseph McCann?
Yes. And the ship is not docked yet, so you do not expect you'll probably find him on this side of the Irish Sea until it docks.
Ah, so he's not a local that's taking it back.
Looks like it's coming in from Liverpool, so he's probably over there.
Okay. Then he's going to spend some time finding out what he can about the shipments that go to Liverpool. Judging from what we saw in the ledger, how often do they send these out?
Many shipments go to Liverpool, but very few of this size. The shipments that are being expected from this ship maybe once every other year, I would say.
Okay. I'm kind of at a loss a little bit, so he will, of course, consult with Thomas on what he thinks we should do.
And
I still believe having a cadre of ruffians on standby to distract the men on board ship wouldn't be a terrible way to spend.
So we're going to go about trying to find a group of toughs who can start a brawl on the dock.
Failing that, perhaps some able ship seamen who could be made loyal to us and insinuated on board. Start that mutiny you were talking about.
It would have to have a reason to mutiny, though.
Low pay, long hours, a rotten taskmaster of a captain. We can give them any reason we like. Their job will simply be to stir up the men on board ship.
I'd want to help us solve the problem of the K-Knights that will be with them.
We do have these rings.
Yes, but we were told specifically that no K-Knights must be allowed to report back to Barbaros.
Correct. But I expect it would be easier to handle that particular situation when we are no longer en route to Liverpool.
And how exactly are we going to get aboard the ship?
Well, we do have these rings.
So we're going to say that we found ourselves stranded in Dublin and we want a trip back to Liverpool.
That's an option. Or we could be acting on behalf of the Covenant and commandeering the shipment.
No one's going to believe that.
Who's he going to confirm it with?
Whatever we do to them is going to have to be quick and decisive. Mortal men aboard that ship, most of them anyway, would probably only think it's a normal delivery mission. They'll have nothing to report should they get free.
It's the Marines I'm interested in.
And how many did he say there would be? 40?
60.
60? Bloody hell.
Fighting men are hard to come by. Those that specialize in shipboard combat even harder.
At my best, I could take 4, maybe 5 of them. They would overwhelm us.
Physically, yes. But we do have these silver tongues.
given the power to change the will of an entire crew.
Sometimes it's not power. It's the words you use.
Forgive me if I can't think of any words that would be appealing. Yes. Hello, we've come to take your ship.
The promise of better things, better pay.
A promise we can't keep.
Who says?
Are you going to pay them?
I certainly could, but if they're to be put towards piracy, I definitely will make a king's bounty in no time.
You plan to convert an entire crew of trained mariners into pirates. Just by talking to them.
Stranger things have happened.
It's madness, Thomas.
So is walking on water. But there was a man once, and he'll try.
Our first step will be to neutralize the Canaanites. Then we can worry about what we'll say to the crew.
Agreed. Though, if we can influence him to divert the ship first, I think that would be best.
If only we could get to him sooner. Wonder how long they stay docked while they're loading.
A day, maybe two.
It might be enough time.
It'll have to be.
But those in Barbarossa's employ will want to make sure no one can get close to him. It will take all our guile.
Then let us set our plans in motion.
First, to find some crew who are willing to insinuate themselves, I assume?
Precisely.
Seems as good as any other place to start.
Alright. So you want to find a motley crew?
Just 5 or 10 individuals who can start working the rest of the crew.
So are these sailors or soldiers?
Preferably sailors.
Sailors, okay. And are you bribing them? Are you convincing them of the promise of future bounty, or...
It's gonna take a little conditioning and a little bit of greasing, I think.
I'd say a little bit of both.
Yeah, Cormac is going to be using the full force of his presence. That's for sure.
Same, though.
Okay. We will start with that. What level of presence do you want to use?
I'll use 3. I don't have Majesty. That would be a little overkill anyway.
Okay, so you're going to try and entrance 5 to 10 men?
Yes.
Okay. I'll settle for 1 roll. So we'll roll 1,000 dice here. You spend a blood point, roll appearance empathy. We're going to give you a difficulty of 4.
Appearance empathy. Okay. God, why do I always have the worst dice pools for this? I'm spending blood to increase my appearance. Just kidding.
This isn't V5.
Well, it's not a botch.
It is not a botch, but you do not feel that your gifts are effective on these men.
Hopefully Thomas does better.
Yeah, about to say, can I get in on that roll also?
Absolutely.
Same
roll. Appearance empty, difficulty 4. That doesn't mean you can't try, Cormac. It just means you won't have the gifts behind it.
Which is fine. He will use his natural charisma.
Alright, that's 2 successes. So that means it's going to last 1 day. So I'm going to assume this is the night before you need to use them.
Sounds good.
So we'll say you got 5 men in that. Over the course of the night preceding the night you expect to embark, you find 5 men and at one point or another make use of your presence, and by the end of it, you can tell they're devoted to you. They serve you in every way they can. Eager to please. And Cormac, if you want to try for another 5 men without your gifts, we'll take a manipulation expression, difficulty 8.
I can see this is something that he might be working on for a little bit longer time. Not necessarily trying to do this the night before.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Manipulation?
Yes.
I can't convince you of charisma. I'm not really lying to them.
Alright, you can do charisma. Charisma expression.
Alright.
You can see it both ways.
I don't suppose air of confidence will play into this.
I'll let you use that, yeah.
And good thing it does, yes, because that will give me many more successes.
Okay. So 3 successes with the specialty?
Yes.
Alright, then I'm going to say 3 of the 5 men that you speak to end up getting convinced that there could be some promising outcomes by following you. You seem to have enough confidence in what you're talking about that maybe you've done this before. Maybe you're a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity guy. And it sounds a little bit far-fetched, but they're willing to give benefit of the doubt. And they're willing to go along with this plan of yours.
And he will, of course, grease them with the proper drinks and women. Things to let them know that he's serious. And a bit of coin, of course, yes, I was going to say.
I'll have you roll your resources, difficulty 5.
It's Tom's resources we're going to levy at this.
This can be an addition. You don't have to worry about this taking away successes, but you might be able to get a couple more if you successfully grease some palms also. 2 successes and 3 from Cormac. Yeah, between the two of you, you show these men a pretty good time. And the other 2 men who were a bit hesitant to join in, they see how much coin and women and fun you all are having, and they feel like they're going to miss out on some kind of big haul if they don't join in on this. You end up getting all 10 men after everything's said and done. So you have your motley crew ready to go. 5 of them are absolutely bound to serve Thomas for at least one night.
Now we need to figure out how to get him on the boat.
There are agents. They're helping to inspect and ship and ensure that the will of the Covenant is obeyed.
We're really going to approach from this Covenant angle, then. Seems more risky than it's worth.
But it also has the highest likelihood of success.
Only until it fails. If any one of them get away, we're finished.
The only person we'll tell is Charles Wright. He can pass word to the captain. And his fate is sealed as soon as we step on board.
I don't like it. But I'll have to trust you, because I don't have a better idea. Certainly attacking the ship head-on, which was my original plan, will not work.
Would that it had a chance. I'd much rather that.
Still, this idea of yours has the potential for much less bloodshed, which I do like.
Then we'll see each other on the other side, I suppose.
Alright. So you commence with the second night, the night you are boarding the ship?
Aye.
Alright. So move on to the next night. Cormac and Thomas, you gather your 10 men. They follow in behind the 2 of you as you make your way back down the docks. When you make your way down the boardwalk, something is noticeable which was not noticeable in previous night. It stands out. You see a massive ship anchored at the longest of these wooden docking stations. It's around 170 feet long across the deck from stern to bow. The widest part of the ship, the beam, is about 40 feet across. You see 2 large square-rigged masts in the fore, lateen-rigged mizzen mast in the aft. It's the largest ship you've ever seen, Thomas. And the banners at the forward end show the 3 golden lions on the crimson background. House Lancaster. There is light on board the ship, and you can see activity of moving men. The scene is yours. There is a gangplank leading from the high point of the ship, from the deck, down to the boardwalk. And it's quite high up.
Chin up, shoulders back. And he'll approach the ship thusly, basically heading up the gangplank like he owns the thing.
Do we leave the men waiting off to the side?
We can. Like, that can definitely be an afterthought. I'm okay with that.
And Cormac will follow you up the gangplank.
Alright, the 10 men stand behind, waiting on the dock, as the two of you make your way up top. Immediately, as you make your way up to the deck, 6 men come from around the top, swords drawn. Halt. This ship is not permitted for citizens of Dublin. Disembark.
We're not citizens of Dublin. And he'll hold up his ring. Fetch Charles Wright.
Man looks at you, very serious. He looks to one of the other men and nods to him. You wait here. And all these men remain except for one man who departs, walking down the deck. He disappears, and a few minutes later, you hear the sounds of boots on the wooden deck as men approach. Now 5 more men, along with an individual who doesn't look like a marine or a sailor, looks kind of like a noble, is approaching, pale-faced. You see this man who looks somewhere in his 40s. He has no facial hair at all, but kind of short, curly brown hair, and very fine dark navy jacket, long white hose, and fine boots. He looks the two of you over. I say, what do we have here?
We are on orders from the council.
The council, you say? He kind of looks at you sideways. And which council would that be, old sport?
And he'll offer out his bejeweled hand.
He takes a step forward, looking at your hand and the ring there. Then he takes a step back, his eyes kind of widen a bit. I apologize, my lord. I had no idea.
Clearly not.
Stand down, stand down. He kind of looks around the men who are having their blades out, gesturing at them, waving them off very dismissively. These are esteemed lords of the gauntlet. Please, I apologize, my lord. Welcome aboard the Peter von Donzig. And he kind of does a bow. I'm Charles Wright.
I'm aware. This is Cormac de Courcy, and I am Thomas Chamberlain.
Ah, so you two. I recognize the name. Never had the chance to meet you. Good to put a name to the face, old sport. Shall you be wishing to do an inspection of the latest of the Covenant prize ships?
That had occurred to me. It's part of why we have our own men.
You said you were here on the Covenant for, which purpose?
The shipment is being diverted.
Diverted? He kind of turns to you, stopping, looking confused.
The Council has concerns about its destination and uses.
Hadn't heard any of that news. Just left Liverpool 2 nights ago.
Which is precisely why you haven't heard it. The tensions between Chester and York have given rise to grave concerns amongst their compatriots.
And where shall the von Donsig be diverted to, Goldsport?
The Isle of Man. Until such time as both Chester and York have seen fit to parley.
Alright, at this point I will take a manipulation subterfuge. Standard difficulty, you may add your dots and status to this.
Can I get... Let's see, persuasive. Specialty and manipulation.
Okay. You are persuading him that they are now going to the Isle of Man because it is on the order of the Covenant. Ah, well, very strange turn of events. But, you would know more than I would, old sport. Trust your judgment. He nods to you as he returns back and walking further along the deck.
Tom will give a wave to the men on the dock.
And they start making their way up.
And then he'll turn to Cormac. We really ought to set about that inspection then.
We'd be quite thorough.
He nods. Oh, as you say, my lord. I think you'll be most pleased with the von Donsig. The Portuguese surely can make a fine carrack.
Quite so. Though I've always favored the caravellas. Sleeker, swift.
If I do say so myself, my lord, you will be hard-pressed to find a comparable ship around these waters.
True enough, but the caravella is better made for river running. I'm London raised after.
Well, he takes a couple steps forward, a bit conspiratorially, bringing up a hand to one side as he speaks to you. Don't mind me saying, it is a bit excessive for a carrack of this size and status to be doing such a short trade route as from Dublin to Liverpool, but it seems my Lord Barbaros is very protective of this cargo.
Seems damned unprofitable, too.
As I understand it, he makes quite a good, tidy profit off these poor Irish bastards. They're getting fleeced out here.
Cormac holds his tongue. But it's very hard.
I'd be careful. They're Irish about.
I should certainly like to see what these Irishmen would like to do against 60 English Marines. And he grins.
I should very much not like to see such a thing.
Apologies, my lord. Of course you're correct. I shall leave you to your inspection.
Make sure to inform the captain of the change of plans.
At once. He nods. He begins stepping away.
Can I try and use entrancement on the Marines immediately around him?
You can on one.
Oh.
I let you use one rule for multiple people for the sake of simplicity, but
That's
it's really only
that's
two.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Can I identify their commander?
A perception, investigation, difficulty 8. You're fairly sure you found the commander. He's near the bow of the ship. There's a couple men talking to him, and he's looking out over the water.
He'll turn to one of the nearby Marines. I should like to start with an inspection of the fighting men on board. Is that the lieutenant there? And he'll point him out.
The man looks to you and then turns back up to the front. Him? No, that's Corporal Jenkins. The lieutenant is he's on shore leave. He'll be back by the morning.
Who's the second?
Well, the sergeant is below deck. He's sleeping right now. He's supposed to be on duty. He kind of leans in.
Well, that simply won't do. Care to introduce me?
He looks a bit nervous, but nods. He'll lead you away. What's Cormac doing during this time?
Cormac watches this brief interaction. Then he's going to set about giving the men something to do, the 10 that they brought on board. He will have some of them go below decks to check out the cargo that's being loaded.
Alright. They go about inspecting the cargo. Most of it, almost all of it's been loaded. You expect that maybe this has been going on throughout the day. And they go about looking it over. The cargo hull is absolutely full. Meanwhile, Thomas, you follow this Marine down below deck, And there's one of these kind of hanging hammock cots where one of these men is kind of leaning, and he has a simple helmet that's kind of tipped over his eyes, keeping out the low lantern light. Sergeant Santulli. He wakes up, kind of pulling his helmet up. What's this about? Who are you?
Tom, I'm here to inspect the ship and its men.
He kind of looks from you to the marine you were with, and he kind of straightens out. Goals? What do you require?
First, that each man assigned a watch be on it.
He kind of looks at the floor, a bit ashamed. Yes, sir. Goals?
Do you know what happens on board ship when men shirk their responsibility?
Yes, sir. I understand.
Do you? Have you ever been on a ship that's capsized?
No, sir.
What about run aground on shallow rocks just beneath the surface because some fool decided to sleep at his post?
I shall make sure the watch is maintained.
Assemble your men. I shall have a discussion with your lieutenant about this particular incident.
He visibly gulps as he begins getting his men ready.
And he is going to go ahead and use and transmit on the sergeant.
Okay. Take another appearance empathy, difficulty 5. And another blood point. Alright, 2 successes. That's a day of service for this sergeant. Sergeant Santulli. He seems eager to please now.
And at this point, Tom is basically going to go through the motions until it's time to cast.
Alright. So, at the sight of Tom sending off Sergeant Santulli after having entranced him, and Cormac setting the 10 motley crew to getting into the bowels of the ship and looking over the loot, the product to be moved, the scene will fade, and at that we will close the session. Since we are at 9, we will pick it up again next week. See how this concludes. Well, you didn't all get detained or cut into ribbons, so you're off to a good start.
Yes, good start.
Yes.
Cormac is nervous.
I'm thoroughly entertained. Let's do some entertaining role players. Start with Cormac.
Ooh, I'm gonna give it to Elined this time for losing her shit. I really thought that was gonna go quite badly as she lunges at a prince.
And Elined.
I'm going to give it to Cormac for constantly second guessing his choice he made last second.
Cool.
Yes.
Thomas.
I'm going to give it to Robert for ineffectually attempting to stave off Elined's wrathful friend.
It's a good attempt.
I was amused.
And Robert.
I'll give it to Elined.
Very good. Very fun. 2 experience all around.
Pats on the shoulder. There. Please don't frenzy.
There, I found an appropriate image.
Angry Welsh choice.
That's perfect.
Oh, amazing.
Love it.
That's cute. Great. Great stuff. Alright, good game, everybody. Looking forward to next week.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Good game. Have a good night.
Word.
Good night.